Meeting is called to order. Please rise for the flag pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Arlie made the motion to approve and Eugene seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The agenda is approved. Approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Jordan made the motion to approve the minutes and Lynn seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The minutes are approved. Updates, county board update.
The petitions were all approved with no discussion.
There was no board of adjustment this month. Brings us to petitions. Petition number 7, petitions docket PC 07-2023-1. To consider the petition of Keith and Roseanne.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Could we do a little update on the docket PC 04-21-22-03?
We have nothing to report at this time.
Well, we do, and I'm going to ask this commission to maybe make a recommendation. And do I have an attorney? Do I have a county attorney in the? Are you now? I apologize. I don't know that we've met.
Maybe once, but yeah. I'm Paul. I'm covering actually for Alex Tillman. He'll be the main attorney for the board planning commission going forward.
Okay.
He's getting married this weekend.
Oh, gee. Well, good for him. Since the last meeting, Mr. Stanton, we had a site visit with Senator Miller being present, myself, and some of his staff. And there is this ongoing discussion. Senator Miller is checking into. It's really unclear what role DNR has in this whole project. And does DNR have the authority to deny us as a county to issue a conditional use permit? That's unclear. They're assuming authority in a number of documents, but have they been given direct authority to deny the LOMA, letter of what's this? Map amendment. So we're still working on this, and I don't know if Eric has anything new. I've been copied on a lot of different correspondence and everything. I mean, this is not a dead issue, and I personally don't think it should be a dead issue. I think there's some politics being played, and Mr. Stanton would.
I understand that,
Like to
but as
build.
far as this group and this board is concerned, until they play their politics and get stuff figured out, if we bring it back on the table and deny them, then it's all over with.
Well,
Then all of his stuff is going to be for naught,
Well,
correct?
I can't say that because this is just an advisory board. This
Well, it'll
board
be
does not
done
have.
for here.
Right, but this board doesn't have final say, just
Right.
like does the DNR have final say. And so there was a request that this planning commission would possibly send a letter of support to Mr. Stanton to continue his process and change the flood mapping to accommodate his desire to build a recreational, home facility on that property. So that's what the ask is. Are we willing to, put it in writing to ask DNR or FEMA to take definitive action? I mean, the DNR is just an opinion. It's a recommendation again. I don't think they have the final say to say what can and can't be done.
So they're just putting it on pretty much on a standstill.
Yeah.
The DNR
Low track,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, denying him his right to build on something that is,
isn't his or isn't theirs.
no, it's not theirs. They don't do our zoning and planning. They don't follow our criteria.
They're thinking they can.
Right, in my opinion, there's a lot of assuming going on. And it's a hypocrisy. Homer Sand, we dealt with that before. Homer Sand is a dredging site. Now that sand is being hauled off and trucks are going across the railroad tracks. The reason the sand wasn't removed from Mr. Stanton's property, and it used to be Matthew, is that the railroad would not allow trucks to use that railroad crossing. I mean, it's within, you can almost see the sites, the hypocrisy.
Well, it's a dangerous spot to cross there.
Well, exactly. But the Homer spot is very dangerous. And it's every day, I think there's trucks coming in and out of that site.
Yeah.
The Stanton property.
Let's just stop here, because we're either going to open this up or not open it up.
Okay,
Now, should we listen to what Eric has to say before we make that decision? Is that okay?
sure.
Please, Eric, fill us in.
Okay.
And then we can decide whether we want to open it up or not.
I did see an email yesterday from one of the representatives of the petitioner, Mr. Stanton. And it's basically posing more questions to the DNR for clarification. And as Marcia pointed out, we did meet on site and there's a continuing discussion with the DNR. So at this point, we do know there probably would be a more formal response coming from the DNR on this. So staff's recommendation would be to leave it on the table at this point, unless in the next month or so, future correspondence comes from either the applicant or state agency on it. So that we have really no actionable item or information to add at this point.
Okay.
And the request from the petitioner was, is this commission willing to issue a letter of
Is
support?
that a motion to put this, to bring this off the table?
Yes, I'll make a motion. to
Okay,
bring
do
it
we
on
have
the
a
table.
second? To bring docket PC 042122, a year old, the petition of Doug Stanton to build a dwelling on agriculture resource on less than 40 acres and in the natural shoreland natural feature overlay district and floodplain. Is there a second to this?
I got a question before, Mr. Chairman. What are they asking for, Marcia?
Well, a letter of support to go to like Senator Miller, and we're in contact with Representative Finstead at the federal level because he would be FEMA, Miller would be DNR, of support to keep this moving forward to get clarity and potentially allow him to build his home, recreational home there.
I guess I'd like to see it because it's been going back and forth and the DNR tells us one thing, then somebody tells us another. My personal feeling is we need to one or the other. So I guess, I'll second it.
Pick it off the table, doesn't it start the clock again for the permit and how long they have to actually take action?
Legal, if we take it and off the table, does that start the clock again? His 90-day clock or 90-day clock?
It's
I
90.
don't think he's already on that.
That's the question before us right now.
I believe it does. It can be further extended on, if you would agree or further written. I think the agreement has already been extended once. So, I'm written notice to the applicants. It can be extended, to my knowledge. I put one caveat that I am the backup attorney on this, so I don't have these issues quite as consistently as Attorney Nuttall did and as Attorney Tillman. My understanding that it could be extended again if there's, especially if there's agreement by the applicant.
Marcia?
Eric, Mr. Stanton already agreed one time to extend this. Does that not hold true?
Well, you see in the form, in your packet, there is a form he signed, but he's unaware that this is going to be discussed tonight too, so it would have been,
Yeah, he's not here to
Yeah,
represent
I,
us.
I guess I,
He is some, he asked me to bring it
Okay.
forward, so he is aware.
yeah, is,
You're saying his one-time signing of extending it does not hold? We'd have to do that again.
this is the second time that he's asked for an extension. In fact, he waived his 60-day clause in that, but by opening it up again, I don't know. I guess this is unprecedented territory.
Did we want him to wait the first time?
Correct.
Anyway, we have a motion on the floor to bring that petition, bring it up on the table. Well, do we have a second?
Harley second.
No,
Yeah.
No?
you ask a question.
Did you second it?
Yeah. you
I did after. I
Okay,
asked the
okay.
question.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Eugene?
I think that we better say no, because I don't think there's nobody in this room that has a clue what we're doing legally, including our attorney. So we better just leave this alone and get on to petition docket 7/20/23/01, like you originally intended.
Anybody else have any discussion? Marcia?
Okay. I'm not at, and the applicant isn't asking for us to discuss the conditional use permit. He is asking for a letter of support to continue the discussions and get clear answers from both FEMA and the DNR with the help of legislators, and legislators like letters of support.
Lynn?
County commissioner could do that, as well as a planning board, and it wouldn't require a vote.
I'm sorry, I didn't
A
understand.
county commissioner could write a letter of support.
I have, and I've been in contact with the offices for the applicant. Yes. I mean, again.
Mike?
I just think it'd be unprecedented for us to not have passed anything that's on the table. Individually, we could all write a letter of support, but as a letter of support, if they're asking the board to do that, I find that.
That's why it has to come back on the table and it has to go through everything in order to get a letter of support. You can't just
That's
say
my
you're gonna
point.
give them a letter of support. You need
That's
to
my
have,
position. Is this board need to do that? And I don't know why we'd want to set that precedent. If each of you individually wants to write a letter of support, then fine. But here we are, we're listening, we're trying to get facts. I'm still waiting for facts. I
And Mr.
understand the FEMA thing, and I might disagree with FEMA, but that doesn't mean I'm going to write a letter of support bucking FEMA. Because there's a whole cascade of things in our zoning ordinance relates to FEMA. And floodplains. I mean, that's the legal entanglement here. So I'm not in support of this commission to write a letter of support.
anybody else have any discussion? Louis?
I think you're opening up a can of worms, as everybody else said. You were opening precedences and everything else that I don't think we want to cross at this point. I mean, individually, I could have support for the project, but as you sit there with the board, it could have repercussions. And one of them we found last time was that you could possibly lose the federal flood insurance.
Right.
So before you travel too much in support, better see which way we're treading.
Okay, I will say that I don't, he is not here to represent his interests. And no one's here that I'm aware of from his, to stand up for his side of things. I would be very much against bringing it up, but any other discussion?
Call floor.
Yes, I will. Oh, she wants.
I will forward through Eric, and Eric can forward it to each of you, a lengthy set of documents that has been worked on that explains some of the engineering, the geological, the the floodplain mapping and everything so that you have more information.
Okay, everyone in favor of bringing, how do you say that? Bringing the docket PC 042122, the Doug Stanton petition, bringing it off the table and into this org group, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, bringing it on the table and discussing it, say nay. Nay. I think we voted to leave it on the table. Is that proper
point-
verbiage?
Point of clarification then,
Okay.
if it's on the table, does the 90 or 60 day, do we have to continue to obtain that permission?
No, it was not specified to a time limit. It was until it was ready to proceed, so.
Okay. All right. Just-
Okay. Now, number 7, new petition, docket PC 07202301, to consider the petition of Keith and Roseanne Naunheim, property owners who seek a conditional use permit to build a dwelling within 300 feet of the top of the bluff of the Minnesota River Bluffs Overlay District. Eric, as long as you're there.
Well, good evening. We're going to tag team in this presentation to discuss this application. I'm going to go over some of the background and the premise of what this constitutes, and Lou is going to help a little bit with some of the view shed comments and narrative that we have. And, I guess we'll go from there. This is a conditional use permit to allow a dwelling within 300 feet to the top of a bluff in the Mississippi Overlay District. The applicable section of the ordinance is 11643. And I guess I want to start out based on some of the feedback that I've been getting from the public that this is not a variance request. This is a conditional use permit request. The setback is being met with the proposal. The setback is 100 feet. Just in 2011, when the county adopted our new ordinance, it had enhanced bluff regulations and restrictions. And at that time, the county board ultimately, following the planning commission recommendation and some of the work sessions that we had elected to create this conditional use permit process for everything from 100 out to 300 feet in the MRB. We also do have bluff regulations for the rest of the county, which there's a bluff setback thus forward. So this is a conditional use permit application. Site is located in section 31 of Homer Township. The green asterisk is roughly showing the location of that. The local township road is Government Point Road. It's a Homer Township maintained road that terminates essentially as you go to the northeast on that segment of road. The property is roughly 50 acres, and you can see by the exhibit, the GIS map, the round circle shows the approximate building site. It's roughly half woods and half agricultural land. You can kind of almost see where that division is just on the aerial map, and you can see the township road that kind of angles in from the south and then bends to the northeast. Okay. For following along, most of these exhibits are in your book as well. And
Question, Eric.
mhm.
You've got the lines going down, so is that a different property that goes down the bluff, or do they own to the road?
Actually two parcels. There's this triangular piece that had a cell tower in it at one time. The tower has been removed, or maybe it was a radio tower, actually, to be more correct. But the parcel that contains the 50 acres, roughly this line, Sure.
So who owns all the little lines going down to the,
The rectangular ones are individual parcels. So there's multiple property owners that this abuts. I just want to try to match up.
Who owns that parcel that the tower was on?
They do, the applicants. That's a separate parcel.
Is there anything out on that road past that tower? I mean, the road goes way out to a dead end. Is there anything out there?
Yes, there's 3 individual building sites that are located to the east.
Nothing on them though.
Houses.
Houses.
There is
There's
houses.
3 houses,
Yeah.
correct,
Okay.
yep.
yes.
And this is Government Point, very prominent bluff. And this has been the focus of the view shed analysis because it is a very prominent bluff. I've kind of circled the general area of where the site is that's beyond the tree line. Do want to point out, looking at the LiDAR and elevation maps, from the rough elevation of Highway 61 is 560. The field in which they propose to build is at 1160. It's roughly 560 feet and change in elevation from the Highway 61 corridor to the field in which they've elected to erect the house. This view is from the Black Horse parking lot, fairly recent, looking at the current existing conditions.
I'm sorry, Eric, for clarification, what was the 1160?
That's the elevation of the ground or field in which the house would be built upon, up on top.
And the bluff elevation?
Well, the Highway 61 corridor was roughly 660, but it's a change of 560 feet. Yep. This is the petitioner site plan, kind of showing the orientation, showing the rough location of the house, a detached garage, septic area. You'll see some varying degrees of site plans, we'll get into a few other points here of the staff report too. This was the exhibit that was used in 2021, July. Showing the approximate location of the driveway. Obviously that would be subject to change on contour. We've received comments just on how sensitive that site is as far as land disturbance and erosion. And you'll see some pictures of current conditions, previous conditions. Should note that also in July 2021, the applicants did receive a variance from the prime soil requirements, and that reference is in your staff report. You can see where the type 2s and type 3s are. So the building site did encompass that. So they had made an additional application through the Board of Adjustment, which they granted the variance to allow that standard from the prime soils to not apply to their situation. So that part has been completed or answered roughly 2 years ago. Fairly recent picture, this address you see, 21883, is the rural address for the previous tower site. So you can see there's quite a bit of overgrowth. Hasn't been maintained. It probably wouldn't be adequate for the driveway purposes. They'd have to work with the Homer Township to re-examine the access and to look at the alignment should this be recommended for approval. That's Government Point Road that you see to the right, and this is the point where it's going down gradient, and it's going to make that last bend to those 3 houses that are to the east from this site. This was a picture submitted by the petitioners. This was from July 2021. At that time, it was meadow and hay. That kind of shows some posts, some stakes, kind of that border, that cedar tree. That would represent the approximate building site. Yeah, that shows the hay at this point in July up to the wood line. That shows Government Point Road. Again, you see the blue address sign to the right would be roughly where a driveway would originate. These are current conditions. Looking at the meadow area, again, those cedars, the stakes weren't present at this point, but it was roughly representing the area that they had selected at that point.
Question, I'll go back to that picture. Which direction are you looking now?
At this point, I'm looking almost due north. And then I'm looking kind of to the northeast on the right one.
So
Towards the river.
towards
the river.
is the one on the left and then more.
One is kind of still looking at the river, but it's kind of more of a northeasterly fashion. And this is the current condition. There's corn that borders part of the wood, and the segment in which the building was selected showing to the right or to the hay strip. And again, this is looking at the northeast, almost same alignment of that picture a couple frames back.
So the house would kind of go between that cedar tree and Lou.
Yes. Mhm.
Louis.
Do you know how far they are from the rock where that house is going?
This, let me get to the next picture, because this is further in the wood line as I'm getting closer to the actual Government Point. And from the sheer rock ledge of, that's a distinct point. That's a real prominent point, but it'd be 250 feet from the bluff, the extreme bluff cliff edge.
I was asking how far they gotta go till they hit rock.
Oh, below.
Are we 8 feet, 6 feet, 5 feet?
Soil survey would probably indicate that. Depth to bedrock probably within 6 feet. Just by, previous.
Does the applicant
Soils.
own the rock? The point?
No.
That's another private entity that owns it? Or is
Yeah.
it- It's
You'll,
another private entity.
and there's a picture coming up that'll maybe show that a little bit more clear. This is the point, and that's about as close as I dare get before I felt I don't have it left in me to, but you can see it's a very prominent location. In fact, Lou pointed out, I believe this is a government marker, or it's a survey marker that's been used quite historically. Everything from laying out the road to other points. The one on the left is showing upriver, so I'm looking kind of more northwesterly, and the one on the right is almost looking straight out.
That government marker, that's the corner of the.
That is that is, I believe, the corner. It's a real sharp, prominent point. Where it ends on there, I'm not sure, whether it's 10 feet back or whatnot. I didn't
But it
see
is
any
a
other survey.
It is a government survey marker.
That's my understanding. Yep.
How far is this proposed home site from that government?
I would estimate about 250 feet, between 250 and 300.
Okay, thank you.
And the pink area shows the area that was modeled for high probability for archaeological resources. So again, if this was ultimately approved, the county would commission a survey or a phase 1 survey by the Mississippi River Archaeological Service out of UW-La Crosse. This point, you can see where, maybe I'll show where that picture was taken. right about here. So you can see that the property line does lie back a ways there too. Okay, with that, we're going to get into some of the data that we have requested and that we collected. We did contact St. Mary's University, and the first series of sets is the digital elevation modeling that they did. And I'd like to maybe bring Lou up at this point just to kind of go over some of those items.
Thank you. Good evening. So this slide's just showing the parcel and the layout of the top of the bluff, the 100-foot setback, and then the 300-foot buffer or area that would require a conditional use permit. The viewshed analysis, like Eric said, was contracted with St. Mary's University Geospatial Services Center, who conducted the viewshed analysis using ArcGIS and LiDAR data. This is a part of that we received from St. Mary's. Showing the footprint of the home in brown there and the height. So they used the footprint and the height of the proposed dwelling of 31 feet. And then built that into the digital elevation model that they then used to conduct the viewshed analysis. Go ahead.
This is a graphic design. It's not the actual. It's almost, in my opinion, it's almost misleading because it looks like it's been clear cut.
I was gonna say, there's no trees or anything there and all the
Yeah.
pictures really.
Yep. So I'll get into that.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see the model actually did represent vegetation. Took that into account, and then I'll point to the just to the, I guess, the northeast of the home. This area. You have a texture there that isn't representing the bare earth, but it's actually representing the vegetation. And the way that showed up is that with cones, essentially, because the way that the LiDAR works is that it's flown over. There's a plane that comes over the top, and it's sending down laser light radar, essentially, down to the surface. That radar is bouncing off of the atmosphere. It gets a little bit of, there's a little bit of atmospheric, very small amount that comes back, but most of it bounces off of the ground, and the LiDAR sensors can pick that up.
Ground, not trees and shrubs and
Anything. So, I mean, it's bouncing off of atmosphere, it bounces off of vegetation, and then it bounces off of things that are harder surfaces like a building or off the ground. It bounces off in different ways, and they can measure that. And so it's very accurate for especially hard surfaces, because it bounces very, it just bounces more. But vegetation, it does bounce off that as well. And so you'll get what's called a first return of the radar. So it'll hit and bounce off. And then some of the laser will penetrate further and bounce off a piece of vegetation. And so you might have first, second, third, and fourth return on a LiDAR radar. And so the sensors are picking all that up and processing it. And so what we used here for vegetation is that first return. So that's going to be where it first hits vegetation. And then we can also pick up the fourth return or fifth return, whatever it is, where it's bouncing off the ground, and you can see that difference. Of course, when it's coming through trees, when the LiDAR was flown, was in the winter, so there wasn't leaves on the trees. It's not going to bounce off as much. It's going to maybe, you know, a tree is thinner at the top and then it gets thicker, you know, there's more vegetation to go through. So it's going to bounce more to the bottom. So that's why you get a cone, is because at the top there's less reflection. And as you go down, there's more bouncing that occurs. So the visual representation isn't very good here because of that, but vegetation was taken into account with the analysis. Before I guess I go on, there are those pins you can see along the Highway 61. So those were used to actually conduct the viewshed analysis. So Highway 61 was used to be our point of reference. And so we're measuring views from Highway 61 to the proposed dwelling. And as you can see, we've got visible lines of sight between approximately the Black Horse and Winona. So there's 4 points there leading into Winona that you would be able to, that the viewshed analysis showed would be visible. And I'll get into what that means in a second. Here's a reverse view of the same thing. The colors on the bluff just represent slope, so steepness of slope. Oops. So here is showing the value that's associated with the viewshed. You can see the visible areas at ground level are in yellow or orange. Visible at 10 feet above ground is in the dark green. Visible at 20 feet above ground is in the light green, and then the 25 feet above ground is the lighter green, or maybe it's beige by that point. You can see the house is actually in the area that would be visible 10 feet above ground. Again, another view of the same thing, showing the property with the viewshed across a larger area. The orange area is again visible at ground level, but those are all on the steep slopes with north and northeast facing aspects. The purple on here shows areas that are not it would not be visible along Highway 61. And then there's the same view showing the buffer and the setback and the bluff area.
I'm sorry, I'm spatially disorientated here then. Where's Highway 61 on this?
Yep.
Is it at the top of
the
the-
top is north, and so 61 would be.
Okay, so again, you're saying the different greens from 61, you would see the dark, you say 10
The
feet.
dark green would be 10 feet above ground.
So you could
You could
see.
see a
could
structure. So if you're at
Standing on 61 looking up, I would be able to see that.
from those green points, you'd be able to see it. Probably during winter leaf off conditions. You're not going to see it
Above the plateau of the.
of the land where the footprint of the house is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think you should keep your eye on the road.
Yeah, I shouldn't be looking,
I hope people would be.
especially with the roundabouts coming up, pay attention.
I mean, this site, I will just say, I mean, this site does have good vegetative buffer. It has, the petitioners submitted some information for viewshed analysis as well. That's different. They're looking straight out the front. And they also showed an area on each side of the house to the west and the east that has 50 to 100 meters of forest, essentially, that's there. It's a good vegetative buffer. So, I mean, I wouldn't, and you saw the pictures earlier as well. I mean, summer leaf on conditions. I mean, nobody's seeing anything through that buffer. Oops. there's the other side. I mean, it does get thin to the front, looking to the north, but that's not an area where it's going to be seen from Highway 61 either. The views from Highway 61 are from the north and the west, the northwest and the west. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, question, Lou.
Mhm.
There's a 300-foot setback. What if they built it at 400 feet?
Well, if they went, so the 300 feet is not a setback. It's there's a 100-foot setback,
Okay.
which this is meeting. There's a 300-foot area that if you build within requires a conditional use permit. And it requires the additional, there's additional standards in the ordinance, one of which is the viewshed analysis needs to be conducted as part of the meeting, which we have done. Other things are required within that 300-foot buffer are non-reflective building materials, downward facing lighting that isn't over 10 feet tall, a number of other
You can't build a pink house.
earth toned, that stuff that's going to help it blend into the landscape better. If you go beyond 300 feet, a conditional use permit wouldn't be required and they wouldn't be before us, before the planning commission.
If they built it at 350, wouldn't be a problem.
Wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, but wouldn't be in front of the planning commission. They might need a variance from the soil standard, which they actually did apply for and gain for this site. But that would probably still apply somewhere else. So a variance may still be required, but not a conditional use permit.
Thank you.
So yeah, another way to look at it as well. I mean, if you're looking at those homes down Government Point Road, there's 3 right along the front face of the bluff. They're essentially right on the brow. Those are difficult to see in summer. You can see them in winter, but they don't stick out that much either because they do have a pretty uniform tree line along there. So they kind of blend into that area. This one would be set back more. I mean, we're not saying that you wouldn't be able to see it, but there is good vegetative buffer, especially with leaf-on conditions, I think is what staff's takeaway would be. Pretty much the what we have for our analysis through St. Mary's. The applicants did submit information on viewshed analysis as well. That's included. Do you want to go through that, Eric? Or?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that along with their slides, the applicants did have a narrative or a write-up that corresponded with each one of those two. So if they'll have an opportunity to speak, but just wanted to point that out, that all we have are the illustrations, and I can kind of go through them, but I would kind of leave this up to the petitioners to discuss.
Is that the view? Go back a picture. Is that the view to the northwest? Or is that straight north?
That's almost straight north at that point.
Buildings how high? Height of the building?
31, I believe, was the
Is
question.
that a 2-story then?
There's a picture of it in here.
Yeah.
I think there's one in the.
A draft picture.
I'll hand it over to you, Eric.
Okay. And as Lou kind of pointed out, they've done just a few visionary profiles that are showing straight north to the Wisconsin state line from the proposed house site. They're pointing out stands of trees that are located to the west of the site and to the east of the site. And where they've identified only potential viewing angle to visualize the house and within that frame that they selected. First measurements.
There's your elevations.
Kind of the mythology that they used for this. This is a picture provided from the applicants. I believe they were kind of showing through the canopy during the fall image. This was the proposed.
Could you go back one? You're on what, where are you at now? On Home Road or 61?
This is their picture. I can't verify whether this was from Homer Road or from 61, but it was from 61.
61.
So you wouldn't see much of the roof line from that angle.
Oh, especially if you're going at 65 miles an hour down the road.
You have to really look.
And this is supplied by the petitioners. I believe it was an example of what they were proposing, along with the floor plans of the various floors with it. And one exercise that they did in July of 21, and I referenced that in the staff report. You know, they did appear in front of the Planning Commission. They received a recommendation to have that conditional use be approved. It went on to the county board, and that was ultimately denied on a 3-2 vote. And the reasons why they denied it are also in the staff report. It was mainly 3 findings that they cited, so that verbiage is in your packet. Part of that exercise that they did at this point was, I believe, they erected a 31-foot flag with a blaze orange vest that was fitted to the top of it. You can see the left was it freestanding and approximate the closest point of the building, and to the right was just kind of a close-up showing that blaze orange vest. Okay, the applicant said there was a drone. Okay. Okay, and I'll let them, because I hate relaying what the exercise was when I wasn't involved with it. So we'll, you know, that's something they can get into, and they submitted some pictures of that exercise through the canopy, and then the 61 corridor, again looking in the direction of Government Point. I believe they. Okay, well, some of the closing notes. The MRB again is an area that's been delineated 1 mile from the center median of Highway 61. So all so-called bluff development would be subject to our special requirements that we have in our ordinance. In this case, with the staff report, as we have 8. There's 8 additional standards that have to be evaluated with the request. Again, the proposed dwelling is 31 feet in height. It's located 100 feet from our delineated top of bluff measurement. And the current land use is agricultural and woodland, roughly half and half. There is a neighbor on the ridge that's roughly 1,200 feet to the east. But as I pointed out in the staff report, if we start looking within a half mile of the proposed site, there was like 46 residences. So it's a very dense residential area as you border the area towards the 61 corridor. Lots of neighbors. Slopes range from 3 to 12%. The applicants did meet with Homer Township Board in June of 2023, and they received an indication of support as far as their request. Location is a very prominent bluff, Government Point. It overlooks the Mississippi River. Dwelling's 31 feet. Natural screening exists on this property, but it could be seen from views to the northwest. portion of the building site may be visible without any additional screening requirements during winter leaf-off conditions, mainly from those vantage points that are in that view shed model. Closing statement that you are tasked with here tonight is to consider all the testimony and materials that are in the staff report. I do want to point out we received a late addition to the packet that was provided electronically earlier, and now a hard copy that is opposed to the request. If the decision is to ultimately recommend approval onto the county board, staff has included 8 conditions for your consideration to do that. Mainly conditions 4 and 5 includes the retainment of all existing vegetation, requirement of landscape plans, and requirements for additional screening to be incorporated to shield from that north west view shed that was minimal. And again, this board is a recommendation board to the county board. So with that, I guess I'll let Mark take over, and unless you had some questions.
Anyone have any questions for Eric while he's up here?
Or Lou, I guess.
Or Lou?
I'm still unclear. So the land, they own the land on the top and it comes out to the point. Who owns the face of the bluff? Other individuals?
Yes,
It is all individually
it
owned.
does.
because
It's been a source of, I shouldn't assume that because there may be some legal questions that have arisen. I know there's easements and cartways and everything else that might exist. So it's best that I don't assert who owners are of, but it is very clear that there is parcels of record that run north and south in those rectangular parcels.
Can you pull a map up and can you tell us where Merchants Bank property is approximately?
I'd have to run back to my desk and run that parcel.
Because we don't, by this letter, we don't really know if it's applicable.
I believe it's north. Yeah, I mean, I do believe it's immediately to the north from my recollection. There's nobody online. The person from SMU, we get any chat or any comments from anybody about that?
Eric, is there, so we approved the prime soils variance in 2021 at the Board of Adjustment. And does that only apply to the original site that they gave us during that?
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, that's something we confer with the county attorney's office, but the board was led to believe there was a certain evidence set of facts of where the house was and the application was based on some premises. So I'd say a severe change or deviation from that would probably warrant a new variance requirement.
But how much of a change is it? I mean, look, feet wise, what are we talking?
Well, I mean, that's would be yet to be seen. He was asking hypothetically if they elected not to build in this location and meet in excess of a 300-foot distance way out into the south.
So the picture, the original proposed that you showed us earlier isn't what they're proposing?
No, that is the current one. We're just talking hypothetically if.
Okay, but when they did the variance, was it different? Was it dramatically different from that location?
No, what is being represented today is the same as the 2021. We're talking hypothetical if they went off 300, 500 feet, quarter mile to the south, then, then we might have to visit the soil aspect as far as that very original variance approval.
Yeah, from what I remember, when we did the prime soils variance, there was another location on their property that was out of the prime soils, but it would have involved disturbing much more of the prime soils with the driveway in order to get to that location. So that's why they chose the spot they're at.
Anybody else have any questions for either Eric or Lou? Okay, thank you. Petitioner, would you like to come up and?
Thank you for the opportunity. Jeff Suckamel.
Your name.
Jeff Suckamel, 4305 Woods Way, Minnetonka, Minnesota. I am representing the applicants, Keith and Roseanne Nonheim. First, I'd like to thank Eric and both Lou. Eric for his help in navigating your online cup system, and then Lou for coming out to do some of the view shed analysis that we did. So if you want to ask questions, feel free. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk kind of about the view shed part of this. This was a field, never been farmed. And the reason we chose it was because as you go back up the hill away from the bluff, it goes higher and higher and higher. So it'd be viewed more the farther back you go. That was one of the first things. And because it was in a field that was never farmed, it was just a meadow. Oh, sorry.
So wanted to, I guess, point to any of these.
Oh, good.
You can go back and forward. So we got maybe yours
Great.
loaded up.
Actually, we'll go right to this one. Put it up already. Right, not that one. Sorry, everybody. I want to get to the one that shows it from the winter. And then the one that shows it after that. Here's the winter view. So if we're talking government point, that's over here. Government point here. And the other thing you're going to see, this rock, and there's another rock, big one here. And as we go farther down 61, this is very prominent. You can barely see this rock because you're trying to look through here. This is a little valley. So this is a place where you can actually see down towards the Black Horse Buck. So that's kind of the only place you might be able to see it directly below. And I had some pictures of that too. As you head farther down 61 though, you'll see how tough it gets. So as we're showing in this one, this is that 31-foot pole with the flag. And we're looking directly towards Winona in this. This is looking toward the flag from the farm field behind, directly across the river, due north. This is looking northwest, directly at Winona. This is Winona up here. So we're at the height of the 31-foot roof that would be trying to look through 60 and 70-foot trees towards Winona. We get down to 61. Oops, going the wrong way, sorry. All right, now we're just down past Black Horse. So Black Horse is out here, and we're straight up from there. So as we stopped here just to take a look, remember I mentioned the one bluff and then the other one, the smaller one. So our house is going to be, or their house, kind of behind here, 100 feet back. Almost the same view. The big one that you're going to see from 61, and then the smaller one with the little trough, house is going to be back up in there. Questions?
Anyone have any questions for him?
How long have the parcel owners owned this property?
It's been in our family forever. Sycamore Farm, it's years and years. I'm 70.
Over 100 years. It was a Lonix
Okay,
initially.
over 100.
Did you receive I just got this
I did,
When I
just
walked in.
today. Yes,
game today.
yes.
Your thoughts on it? Did you read?
Yeah, I did. Thoughts would be, we were already going, there's 2 points in there. There's a geographical survey and there is a bond. We were already planning on the geographical survey because we don't want to build if it's not buildable. And I think the bond is more dependent on what the geographical survey says. So I think that's a little too soon to discuss that, but
Louis?
If I ask the question, given how far you are where the building site is to the rock or to the bedrock,
to the better, I do not.
the limestone, I mean,
But my guess is it's more like was Lou and then Eric were saying, because it was never farmed. So it's probably not good farmland and it probably means it's not that deep.
that's what I was. building, I'm really not.
Right. And we do have to put in, 2 septic systems and then the house, so there probably will be some rock work done.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Jordan made the motion to open the public hearing and Mike seconded it. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. 2 minute maximum, please. 2 minutes.
My name is Scott Shira, 35266 Old Homer Road. Our land is along with my mother Myrtle is 35260 Old Homer Road, and my sister is 35244. We live right below the Suchimos potential house building, and our land goes up the bluff and backs up to their property. And Ms. Ward, if I could hand this to you. This answers your question.
Okay, you own that bluff.
Yeah, I own this one, my mom this one, and my
Okay.
sister that one. And my sister's actually backs up to Government Point, which has been a point for survey for probably since the 1850s, 1860s. The land that we are on has been in our family since 1898. And our concern is not so much the view of the top of their home. Our concern, I think, along with many neighbors, is going to be erosion. We live below, and in May of 2022, we had a major mudslide. We got over 6 inches of rain. We had a major mudslide down on our property. And a lot of it actually is coming from their field that they rent out to a local farmer up on top of the hill. I have pictures of the corn that is growing up there right now. And the corn is right to the edge of their woods, which is, there's probably about a 20-foot, 30-foot strip of their woods towards the river. And then our woods is there that goes down the hill. And we have a major valley through there that brings down a lot of water. And our concern is the runoff from the driveway, the potential driveway that could be put in to get to their home, that's going to run along the property line. It will run along their field and their woods, but it right in the woods is our property. So we have a major concern about runoff. And I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. And it's not so much the roof line. I realize they want a view, and it would be very nice view up there, but we're looking at a major change of runoff in the spring and heavy rains in the summer. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name and address, please. Try to keep it to 2 minutes.
Robert Dunn, 35113 Old Homer Road. I'm basically right straight below where they're gonna build. And I do have a concern with runoff and stuff. I was out there before, and maybe it's not their fault, but the farming practices of these people, they don't have enough. When they get to a swale, he's got a little 15-foot little spot, something that's supposed to keep the rainwater off. could expand that and go into the cornfield farther. Well, they've got, that's not right by me. I've farmed before and that's not the way to do it, especially with that steep of a hillside. I do have a little bit of issue of seeing the house from there. I know that's one of the reasons, I think when they applied for this before, that was one of the issues. I can't see it from my house because I'm right below them. But I know some people have issues with that. I realize Government Point is there. You can see them houses from there. But I think that's before you guys have taken the opportunity to have that 100-foot setback. And that's one of the reasons you probably did, because houses like that. So we'd appreciate it if you'd think about the bigger setback, 300 foot, that'd be great. I realize it's going to be up on the hill, but there's other spots maybe closer to the road that gets the road that they're going to get in there right now. Why not build a house right there? Now, I'm not sure if I've heard stories or not, and I don't want to start stories, but are they building this for their own sake or for somebody else's sake? I guess that's one question I had. The roadway erosion would be a concern because that's going to come down the hill to Old Homer Road. We had enough of that this last time when they built the road for us. Another question I'd have is, have any of you, or is it up to me or somebody else like me to contact the Fish and Wildlife, because there's falcons that nest there. I know not this past year, but the year before, they come up to my driveway and a guy comes down here and tags those falcons that are they're going to be 100 feet away from them. So I guess that's one other issue too. And I guess I'd like to have a consensus. If you guys won't do it, get a hold of the Fish and Wildlife to get their opinion on these falcons that nest and they tag them and everything else here. What detriment is that house going to be sitting right on top of them? So that's another thing that I have. As far as what I know, my property line is up on top of the hill. I'm about 140 feet from that single big tree, that cedar tree that they have. If you walk from there toward the bluff, my property line is right there. So hopefully if they go and start cutting down trees for better views and stuff, which I hope they don't do, but if they start doing that, they don't get it all the way over to where I am. I guess that's all I got for this time around.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please step forward, name and address, please.
Hi, Roseanne Nonheim. Part of the problem with where the property line was 100 years ago, they listed on our property that it goes to the brow of the bluff. So is the brow of the bluff your forehead, or is the brow of the bluff what's on top of your head? And that was the question that we submitted like in the 70s to Harold Libra, who was our lawyer, and he decided that we own what's on top, which was fine with me. And now we have Mike Bernatz that agreed with that as well. So in that sense, we are on the top of the bluff and we have absolutely no intention of farming that land. So I think that would probably improve the runoff, but that would be up to the Geologic Survey to decide. Thanks.
Anyone else? Please step forward, name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Brent Ingham, 35013 Old Homer Road. We live towards the Black Horse, would be 2 houses over. My mother would be the Merchants, which is also right next to Bob Dunn. We had the same issue with water, mud coming down ours. We were trapped in our driveway. You know, I had called Soil and Water about retention ponds or doing something for the practice before this. And if you sit and look at their site and where their water runoff is going to go, it all goes down. It goes right down to a major vein this way and to another one. So I just think there should be some more consideration before we just grant something for that. The other thing, I don't want to look up and look at it. The view you're looking at from Highway 61 going up, that's looking right at my house. So we technically would be able to see the top of their roof. That's all I have at this point, and thank you much.
Good evening. Cheryl Casperson, 35107 Old Homer Road, right next to Brent. and Bob is my neighbor as well. I just want to reiterate the same thing. My major concern, having had a major mudslide that did significant property damage, shut off my driveway, closed off Old Homer Road for a period of time from the runoff. And the last thing I want is something that would possibly add more to that. We have asked to see what they could do to mitigate those circumstances, not add to it. So I absolutely hope that you will take that into account. And, you know, it caused significant property damage. There's a possibility for personal damage, you know, as well. And that's my strong concern. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak for or against the petition? Please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Is there anyone online who would wish to speak? Who's watching that? Ann?
He's writing, no.
She's writing notes.
You see it's who's on.
And no one's hollering or anything?
I'm online.
Okay.
We got some.
Okay, you
Hello?
got some. Okay, your name and address, please.
Hello. I am Laura Courier, and I am currently living in the cities, and I will
Sorry, we
eventually
can't hear
be.
you.
Yeah.
Can you,
Turn up your volume.
yeah, can you speak right into your mic?
Just on her phone.
My name is Laura Courier. Can you hear me now?
No,
Hello?
not real good.
We heard your name.
We heard your name kind of.
Okay.
Mute. She's in-
I have a question about the pictures that you showed the house on. It looks like there's contradicting spots on where the house is going to be from the view. If you can go back to the slides, I'm online, so I can only see what you put up on the slides.
She says she's online. We should be able to unmute her. She's muted right now.
You had one picture showing where Government Point was not in view.
The Government Point was not in view. It was when the other
Yep,
gentleman.
it was from Highway 61.
Photographs.
It was below Highway 61 going up. Okay, so you have that circled. You have that as being where the house is going to be on one point, on one screen. And then if you go further, you have the house being many feet to the right. So you're showing the house in two different spots.
Not quite.
So I would like to know where the house is actually going to be showing. Is it going to be above the cave that's there, or is it going to be
That's government.
out further by Government Point?
Second one is over here.
Yeah, then our house is gonna be over behind the second one.
That's not a.
So that's not the right
That's
spot.
not the right location.
There isn't one that has our house on it though.
Yeah.
Whereabouts
We
it's
showed
gonna
them
be.
there.
Okay, so here's your Government Point then. Here's the one that shows up from 61, and this is the valley. Right in that valley behind there is where the house is gonna be.
Is that clear for you?
I can't see what you're doing on there at all.
To
So,
answer your question, the sheet picture would not have been the accurate depiction of the house.
Which picture?
Just show the plan view. Hold on, that's where that's the footprint.
But that doesn't show it
Okay.
next to government.
So that is right on the point. That would be seen from Government Point, not from by where the cave is.
you have a comment?
Yeah, do you have a comment or a question?
Well, I'm trying to still find out where the house is going to be, because where you show the house going to be is right close to the government point and not by the cave. And the other picture was where you have it circled where it's right above the cave area. So I'm trying to find out where it's going to be. And my concern is the other houses that are down on Government Point, they first started out with not being able to see them, and over the years, you know, the trees have come down. They've farmed the trees out so they have a better view. So now you can see those houses.
I had that concern too, but that's one of the conditions
Right.
that they,
And trees get old and.
that trees, additional trees and plantings will augment existing trees and they'll be planted post-construction.
Yeah. And I guess I wouldn't, I don't know how to say it. I guess, that concerns me. I would be in favor of making it come back past the 300 feet.
Making it come back and then you trailed off.
No, 300 feet.
Past 300, not
Past the 300 feet. I don't want to see the house. I don't want the water runoff. The rocks, with them building that close, you upset the ground rocks. Those rocks are all have been coming down from the point, the erosion on it.
Ann, did you get her address? Please, can you say your address again? We did not get that.
I am part of the Shira clan.
The ones that spoke, the high roads.
I need your address.
Anybody know this woman?
Yeah, it's my sister and it's 35260.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else online out there in labor world? Okay, anyone here? Is there anyone wishes to speak for or against this petition? Please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. This is the last call.
A motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Jordan made the motion to close the public hearing and Louis seconded it. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. All right, wishes.
I'd like to go back and review where the driveway is.
Okay.
It was brought up that that would be a potential problem. I saw the outline of it, but I don't know the.
Again, I believe this is from 2 years ago, the last representation, so that's why.
I don't think it's changed much.
Okay.
Question is, what's the elevation difference between the beginning of that, how it goes through? We don't have LiDAR on here. Do you have a LiDAR one that we could put on, or you don't have it on that
It would be,
to follow the?
closest thing would be, I think, on that first
Yeah,
view shed.
so it pretty much follows the contour of the field.
Once you're up on top, it's at that point.
There is a slope though. It's a
Getting there, you go up
hog
and down
yeah.
the gravel road, but once you get out to the site.
But it's fair to
level
say
top.
there should be some buffer between that and the bluff line. So that mitigation for any runoff could be done.
Should be very minimal, very minimal.
So Eric, on that picture, where is the ravine that we're talking about that?
All the water runs down.
There's actually several.
Okay.
You can see from the July pictures this month, there's corn. So there's been a change in the cropping pattern. But me and Lou, we hugged the woods and they do have contours. So they have corn, hay, they are contoured, and they did have waterways in the depressional areas, but there's multiple sites along that northern wood line that drainage would go to. So it is, it's extremely dynamic as far as the drainage runoff, as you've heard.
But we should be able to tell by looking at this where all the flooding and that caused the erosion to go. It's not on the right side, it would be on the left side, correct? It would be.
Correct. We didn't see any scouring of the landscape itself, but within.
All the way on the bottom.
On the bottom.
About up here, I'm talking about where everyone said that it flooded and across the road and blocked them in.
Valley.
The valley.
There's multiple ravines, and as I mentioned, there's roughly 600 some foot, 560 feet change in elevation at extremely short duration. So when material's moving off of that bluff, it's moving fast. I mean, and I know the county can attest, there was significant damage in the Homer Township area from that rain event from last year.
But I think I heard the applicant say that they would possibly discontinue any agriculture, that it may be planted in prairies or something? Did I hear?
Well,
Maybe not renting it out for corn and beans? Yeah, I'm asking the applicant if I can. I thought I heard them say that.
Right, we're not gonna cut any trees down along the bluff.
Right.
We're not gonna farm any of that meadow. We're gonna take a little bit of that farmland now that is hay, just for the road. And as you see that road, when it comes off of Government Point Road, it goes uphill to the high point and then back down to the house. And the reason being, you want to have only one or two places where the water can come out so it can be spread. So that's kind of the plan. So no, we're not going to be doing any farming. We're not going to prohibit him from farming the rest of the 25 or so acres. But we will be taking a section where you see that road on either side.
And you might in the future look at some government programs that take it out of agriculture and put it into prairies, and they pay you to do that.
Didn't know about that, but
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah.
Why are you?
Because there were neighbors complaining that
Erosion.
they're already having erosion and rocks and.
Yes,
too
whether
much-
there's a house there or not, they're still gonna get the erosion.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but you're still gonna get the erosion because you're next to a woods.
Well, as soon as you
That's
lay
like
down
500.
asphalt for a driveway, you're gonna change the water course.
But if you put in
Are they putting an asphalt driveway in?
Well, I don't know, is it gonna be gravel?
Is it a gravel driveway? Yeah, it's a gravel driveway, not an asphalt driveway.
Yeah, you travel miles of gravel to get to the location, so I seriously doubted it would be asphalt. But no, the idea is if there is erosion, and row cropping does tend to contribute, if they put in buffer strips and CRP lands and such, that would help considerably slow the water down, infiltrate it before it goes over. But is there any documentation from Soil and Water Conservation District that the top was a problem and not just an enormous amount of rain on a soft slope of woods? I know I have woods, and there's places you can't walk because it's so loose and loamy that it just, any amount of rain hits it, it's gone. It's not coming from the top of the hill, it's coming from the side.
Because when you're looking at that map, that kind of triangle where it says archaeological high probability area.
Yep.
That's the peak. Everything below it goes the other direction. So that there's not many acres that even of the tillable land that go down that hill.
The finger is always.
It's not
pointed
like
at
400 or
corn
500,
crops.
600 acres up there that the water's running off. It's like
And
maybe 10, maybe on that
Yeah.
side, the other side.
Mr. Chair, we have condition 5.
Yes.
that addresses that.
Mhm.
And we pretty standardly put that in. For professionals to deal with that.
But I'm just saying there isn't a lot of area there. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I was just curious on that note, does the landscape plan also apply to the driveway? Or is it just for the building site?
It's the whole site, I
Thought it
think.
was the whole project.
I think it's the whole thing.
The driveway might be referenced in the zoning permit, but no, I think that would be a good point to emphasize if that would be instrumental in tying that in with the erosion control and landscape plan, since there's been a lot of discussion on that already
Could
tonight.
maybe add that into that condition to include the driveway.
That'd be a good recommendation.
Thanks.
Harley?
Eric? Sorry.
No problem.
Is there any places up there that would work for like a retention pond or any, like?
Possibly. I would yield to soil and water, SWCD on key sites, but yeah, there probably could potentially be. And, I think we've only gotten one written comment, but staff has received a number of phone calls from staff, from residents.
It kind of sounds like the biggest problem is the erosion for all these people. And I don't blame them. But if there's a way to help slow it down.
Right.
Even if they did put a house up there, it would help.
Right, and that's something we didn't do with this exercise is watershed modeling. And I think we'd start looking at crop field sizes, down gradients, figure out micro watershed and see if there is key junctures that could be beefed up.
We asked the applicant a question.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't
No problem.
Would there be any idea that they might consider doing something like that?
I think, sure. I think we're open to that. The trees that probably would be added would be, like you said, on the northwest side, probably some pine trees. That's where the septic system would be, so that would be a nice buffer there.
Along the woods there or where the water does run,
Right.
And I think like I said, I think these people have the biggest concern is the runoff, and whether there's a house there or not, they're still gonna get it.
Right.
And if there were some holdback ponds, that would help everybody involved.
Yeah. And I think when they did the proposed driveway, they checked for runoff because they wanted to know where they would put the culverts so that they would go a particular direction. So I think they've already done some studies for some of that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Louis?
The reality is if you're gonna get a 4.5 to 5 inch rain, you're not gonna stop Mother Nature and you're gonna get problems. It don't matter where you put it, how you put it. You might mitigate some of this, but not a lot really.
Like I said, there's not a lot of acres there
With a
that's running down.
600-foot drop, you can get a lot of problems.
Yep.
No matter if there's a house there or not, you're gonna get
Correct.
a problem. The way our rains have been this year.
Not this year.
Not too much.
No, we don't
Absolutely.
have
Well, you can live in California and you turn around and see what happens. You either get mudslides or you get,
Atmospheric rivers.
and then you get fires.
Okay, any other questions, concerns, comments?
Is there, we
Marcia.
talked about the geological, if it's right to build on. Where is there a condition?
The archaeological review?
No,
Geological.
geological. I'm looking to see if that's in one of the conditions, or is it
I believe that to be added.
just to be possibly
That's what
added?
you were
That's what
talking
you-
about adding, correct?
I was just all I would like to do is add the driveway to the landscape plan
Landscape
on
plan.
number 5.
That's a motion. I'll second that. That's what we
Can I
need to
just change the condition without recommending approval of the whole thing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would make a motion to change condition number 5 to include the driveway as well.
Which page are you looking at?
Be page 27 of the
Okay.
packet,
All right, I'm on a wrong page.
or probably also in another place.
22, you mean?
Yeah, 22 I was looking at.
once on 27 as well.
Oh, yeah. Include the drive. Okay, we have a motion and a second to change the condition number 5, so it includes the driveway. Legal, you can figure out how to make it sound proper. Thank you. Good. Okay, there's a motion, a second to make it include driveway. Any discussion on this motion? And this motion is just to change the conditions number 5 on page 27, the landscape plan to include the driveway. There's no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And Ann, I'm not sure, Jordan made the motion and Mike seconded it. Okay, thank you. Forgot about that. Okay. Anything else, or what do you want to discuss now?
Kind of like Marcia, the GIS or the geologic stuff happens with the septic. Would they do some testing for that? I
Well,
understand
septic would be a very limited footprint. I don't know if they were inferring that they were going to do more of the whole lay, and maybe with that, maybe it's not the question has been asked, how many, feet to bedrock?
Well,
I don't know if that's important, to us or anything, but. Yeah, septic, they'll do borings to see if they've got. Right.
adequate.
Wishes? Thoughts?
Motion to approve.
Louis made the motion to approve with
All the conditions.
with all the conditions and the findings of fact,
As amended.
conditions as amended, and the findings of fact.
I'll second it.
Eugene seconded it. There's a motion and a second to approve, including the findings of fact and the amended conditions. Discussion. Lynn?
I just keep thinking about the neighbors that don't want to look at it. It's like, does it have to be a 31-foot, 2-story dwelling? But I'm sure that's what they've got their heart set on. Guess if I was doing it, taking up a bluff and that kind of view. Mindful of other people's.
Marcia?
I've had several conversations over the phone. This is the first time I know who they are. They've been more than willing to try and make, this work. And so I think some of the recommendations we're making tonight, like contact soil and water, maybe put some native prairies, for the bees and the bumblebee, you can do a lot of different things and take the cropland out that maybe is contributing. But they've been very, very concerned and want to do the right thing and make it a beautiful home and not be intrusive to the neighborhood. And, we passed this MLB, I think, on a 3-2 vote. So not everybody is quite as concerned or has such a high priority of not seeing something. There's new houses coming up in my neighborhood, and I live in a very rural area that maybe I don't really like looking at either. But I mean, if they own the property and they're doing it in the right way, following all our rules, it is within our rules, our guidelines. And the other houses, I was up there tonight, nice, beautiful, fresh hay cut. The other houses that are there are probably more intrusive than this will be, but that was before the rules changed. And they will face the issue of if they ever have a disaster of being able to, rebuild and we've gone through that before too. So, but I think they're the right applicants for the location to make it work.
See, and I'll say, I prefer them building there versus, if they wanted to, they could come off the 300 foot and put it in the middle of that field and eliminate a lot of this headache And now they're taking tillable land out of production. And Winona County is eventually going to shoot itself in the foot when it takes most of its tillable land out of production. So I'm not seeing your, I'm glad they are putting it where they are and absolutely minimizing the effect it has on their tillable land as a county in a whole. Jordan.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I also want to point out that if they were to put this out beyond the setback, then rather than adding additional screening like we have in the conditions, they could just cut down everything on the face of the bluff, on the edge of the bluff, and have an epic view of the valley. But
They could. They could. They could.
As long as it's their property, they can cut the trees down if they
What
want
you
to.
wish for. Yeah, we'll see.
Mike.
If this was moved 50 feet and if it was possible that their variance was more flexible, I wouldn't even be here tonight because it wouldn't be within that 300 feet. We are here because it's located 20 feet or less in this 300-foot buffer. Again, I heard the testimony, yeah, they were granted a variance, but it's specific to a very narrow site. So as I listened to this, I thought, well, how simple would it be to move that thing 50 feet back and not deal with all this stuff? But I hear you, Mark, that it's going to go into the land, Marcia, that you fought so hard for.
Yeah.
But it's a trade-off. I really appreciate the bluffs too. And I did listen and hear, and I know about, you know, mudslides and so forth. And we can't prevent all that as we've been talking, but we want to do the best we can to minimize that in the future. And really, if they do the right study on this and get the the Soil and Conservation, we could improve that too. Because the rain's going to come down whether you have a house or not. I realize you can get into the impenetrable surfaces like asphalt and so forth. But again, life is a compromise a little bit. And I heard both sides say, my family's owned this since the 1800s, right? So there's 50 acres there. I'd like them to appreciate what they own and try to listen through it. And I thank everybody that participated at any level, because I think we all take that into consideration. And again, where do we go on this? Well, I'm just suggesting what a fine line this is, where that border that house is in that 300 foot. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Correct.
So potentially they could say, well, okay, then we're going to do that. And then they don't have to come back here.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, Earl.
I was looking at this graph from St. Mary's. You look at that, all that land that's, you see, well, it's to our left, cropland. Look down there, there's a ravine there. So all that water in front of that house is going to go down to that ravine and go over the hill, no matter if that house is there or not. And hard to tell, but it looks like there's a hill with another ravine on the other side. So, I mean, if they can figure out a way to control that somehow, that would definitely help. But it isn't going to matter if there's a house up there or not.
And if you put a retention pond up there and you get 6 or 8 inches of rain, that retention
fill
pond
up.
is going to fill up and run over.
No
And
matter what you do.
no matter what you do.
There ain't gonna be no retention pond. It'll be down in the bottom.
And there'll be a big wall of water.
Worst mess.
Okay, any other discussion? I will call a motion. All in favor of approving this with the findings of fact and the amended conditions, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. It passed. This is your first hurdle. You've been through here before. The next is the county board meeting, August 8th at 9 a.m. is in front of the county board. Anyone know any other business to be taken care of at this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Jordan made the motion to adjourn and Louis seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.